that are 8 years old, 10 years old, traveling by themselves or with their friends without any adult supervision.
How?
What is the kidnap rate in Poland currently? Because
Hi guys.
welcome back again to the channel. Today we are going to be checking out a video from the channel where it's Rex. The link is going to be in the description box, and this video is about 10 freedoms you have in Poland but not in America.
Wow.
And we are going to be comparing it with
African as well.
and I think we'll be off the charts for some weird reasons. So let's get right into the video, guys.
So some people will say that America is one of the freest countries in the world. But how true is that? Today we're going to talk about the 10 ways.
Growing up, we there's this phrase we always hear here in Africa: America is a land for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's the greener pasture. Is where you can get the green pasture and.
Actually, when we were very little, you get this mentality that over there you're free to do practically anything and everything.
Like it's just roses. Nobody struggles there. But growing up, I'm like, okay.
Where Poland is actually freer than America. Please tell me I'm not the only one that thinks tipping culture is absolutely ridiculous. It's gotten to the point where people who are working at cafes, self-serve yogurt shops, I'm doing all the work, but I still have to tip the person that's working behind the counter? That doesn't make any sense to me. And as you travel around the world, you realize this tipping thing is kind of crazy because it's not the responsibility of the consumers to pay the wage of the workers. That's the owner's job.
You see, this has always been a conflict for me because I'm like, you come to those those fine dining, right? You're not just buying the food cheap. You're buying it like 10 times above market price. And then when you are done, you see things, okay, in like Africa, you see things like entertainment fee, you see things like VAT, you see things like server fee, there's no service fee, exactly. And you're
that's like, crazy. Before now, it wasn't a thing, but I think it's something we learned from the Americans and we got worse doing it.
Because we're not just paying the tipping.
And it's so entitled that you have to do it. It's not like coming from your free mind and that's crazy, man.
9. The freedom of consumer protection. Something that bugged me a little bit when I first arrived to Europe was like every time you go to a new website, they ask you for permission if they can get your information or cookies, and you have to accept or reject. And I'm like, this is actually having to do this for every website. But then I realized in America, they don't even ask you. They just take your information away and they give it to other people. Is it just me? Or is it annoying how every single thing now requires you to make an account? Like, can I just enjoy it without having to make an account? I don't know who has my phone number, who has my email. I'm getting all these spam messages everywhere. It's crazy. Here in Europe, they have a lot of protections for that. Whoa. So over time, I'm like, okay, there are some EU rules that I think are beneficial to the consumer. Apparently, there's also this rule where you can return items after 14 days for whatever reason whatsoever. I'm not entirely sure how true that is, but it's nice that here they protect the consumer in a lot of ways. Number 8, the freedom to be able to raise independent kids. One of the most beautiful things about this country is when I'm on public transportation in the center of the city and I see kids that are 8 years old, 10 years old, traveling by themselves or with their friends without any adult supervision.
How?
Whenever I say words like this, it always prompts me to ask the kidnap rate and obviously the kidnap rate in those countries. Like, what is the kidnap rate in Poland currently? Because over here, I can't even allow my child go 3 blocks from where I am because the security rate is so poor that I can't even do that. But seeing like a 8 years old, 10 years, 12 years old can get on a bus, a train and travel.
Wow.
That's crazy, man. Like, it's really shocking for me. Like, over here, even adults get kidnapped, not to talk of kids.
I think the rate of missing kids over in Africa is
missing adults even
is quite alarming. To think of the fact that kids are allowed in Poland to enter train, and we're not just talking about just entering train. They are entering these trains unsupervised
on their own.
Wow.
That's
This is one of the reasons why I really like public transportation as well, because it's accessible to everybody and it's connected to all over the city. You can pretty much do whatever you want. People are very connected to their family, but a level of independence, especially with the women, seems to be encouraged because Poland is so homogenous. Society watches over your kids for you to a certain extent, right? There are certain lines that won't be crossed in public, such as hitting a woman in public is definitely not encouraged here. I think men will
I don't think you should be encouraged anywhere in the world.
Public transportation, the young people,
Well,
boys and girls will give up their seat for older people, which
Over
I
here.
also find very
There's a
beautiful.
video I
Safety
said
is
no
also
one
very
sitting
important here.
Oh.
If you compare the
sometimes,
murder
most
rate
cases,
or just
people always
any rate, to
come
be
to
honest,
react.
whether it comes to theft, to sexual abuse, to violent crime, it's significantly less than it is in the US. America used to be like that too. When everybody's optimistic, the country is progressing forward, people are getting richer, there is no reason for people to commit crime. One of the big freedoms you have here in Poland is the ability to say what you want. And when it comes to humor and just making jokes in general, there's a much higher tolerance for what you can say here as opposed to America.
This political correctness, right? He said there's a lot of freedom to say what you want to say here in Poland. But there was this video we checked out about the things you don't do in Poland. And one of those things that was mentioned in that video. Exactly. So my question is, is that true? Because I'm hearing two opinions now.
Among friends or just
thank you.
In public?
Because one side says you can't do that over in Poland,
but we're hearing
now that it is something that is easily accepted. You can criticize about the political climate of the country.
Or is that for foreigners alone? That foreigners do not have the right to just, because you don't really know deep history about
the Polish culture,
culture. Well, so I think I would understand that from there. So you don't just black
America, where everybody's trying to correct other people on what's offensive and what's not. I've heard that that's definitely changing now in America because people are getting really sick of this PC behavior. But I recently saw this video of a senator asking a doctor, can a biological man get pregnant?
Dr. Berman, I wasn't sure I understood your answer to Senator Moody a moment ago. Do you think that men can get pregnant?
And she refuses to answer still. And this is supposed to be a scientist.
I also think yes/no questions like this are
I honestly remember when this was a trend, like, what do you mean a man can get pregnant?
I think the intention behind political correctness is good, but the way that it is enforced is very unrealistic. For example, like if you're in a group with a bunch of guys, we're gonna be talking shit. We're gonna be saying a bunch of effed up jokes, but that's how we bond. And I'm pretty sick and tired of people policing me on what I can or cannot say, especially when it comes to making fun of my own race. There's this weird thing in America where people get offended on my behalf, which I think is really, really weird. Whereas here, we're allowed to joke about ourselves, and I have a very diverse friend group. There are jokes everywhere, but in my opinion, when you're among friends, these are some of the funniest jokes that you can make, right? So I don't think that
by roasting yourself
because it doesn't maybe sound nice to you. Here in Poland, people don't care that much. People have a dark sense of humor in a good way, so you're able to pretty much talk about whatever you want. And I love that. If you are thinking about moving to Poland, I highly recommend this for people who come from Polish families. If you're Asian, if you're American, especially if you're conservative, Poland is an amazing place to live. If you guys are curious and are thinking about moving to Poland, I highly recommend setting a meeting with me here. Number 6, the freedom of not needing a car. This is one of the most annoying things about America in general. And yes, certain cities have good public transportation, but in general, America is a car-first society. So that means that when you move to America, number 1, you have to find a place to rent, but number 2, you also have to have a vehicle. Maintaining a vehicle is so expensive with all the fees that you have to pay just for the car itself, plus insurance, plus gas. And I didn't realize how much money I was saving until I left the US and I sold my car, and I'm like, yo, it's nice having a car, but is it worth all the headache and responsibility? Not really. I also love that in Europe, you can pretty much use public transportation for everything. You can take trains or planes to go to other countries. You can use trains.
This is where a walking system actually comes in place, right? Because over here, if you don't have a car, bro, you are cooked. Like, you're cooked.
If you don't have a car, you're gonna be spending equivalent to the car fee on transportation. Our transportation is ridiculously expensive, and we don't want to talk about interstate transportation. That is like blood money. That's too much.
The worst part of it is, okay, there is this question I want to actually ask, right? During, I don't know what, do they have like a very big time raining season in Poland?
I think the
They
weather,
should. Yeah, they should
winter,
actually.
and
Okay.
other things.
So let me use over in Africa like a rainy season, right? During the rainy season, you hardly get
You
public transportation.
suffer, you're gonna
You will see people
suffer.
literally fighting tooth and nail just to enter a cab.
Yeah.
Tooth and nail. I'm talking about what you're paying with your money for. But because of the crowd and the low availability of public transportation, people now resort into
I want to
survival of the
I want to
fittest.
actually say public transportation because it's not
It's
most of the
not provided
cars
by
by the
government.
government.
No, that's
It's
true. That's true.
actually
That's true.
private owned means
Private
of communication.
exact. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just remembered that because most of those cabs are not actually like private owned. They are like individually owned that
Owned
are using
and
it for cab
public, yeah.
business. So
But in general, transportation here is really terrible. We have really
a
bad
nightmare.
transportation system in Africa.
A nightmare.
Let me just say in Africa generally,
So-
in this region, yeah.
Please let me know during those kind of periods, like when there is harsh weather, is there kind of like a transportation glitch over there as well? What is the rate of the efficiency of the transportation
At that
system?
point, yeah.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
help me
Pretty
in the
much
comment
in
section,
any
please.
city here in Poland, they have a really good tram system.
Oh,
Here
wow.
in Warsaw,
Oh,
they
that's
have
a
a
lot of
metro system as well.
Oh, sorry,
Public
bus.
transport infrastructure in many places around the world is excellent. And I wish that America was like that, but unfortunately, it is not.
Work-life
Also,
protection.
because Poland is a European country, there are a lot of work-life protections when it comes to, for example, maternity leave, when it comes to unemployment.
52 weeks of
The system
paid.
allows for a total of at least 52 weeks of paid leave, combined maternity and parental leave for one child.
52 weeks. Talking about like 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, or more than.
Let me know down there if this is correct. I know it's correct, but
To
it's so hard to
Zeus,
believe.
the social security and the insurance that you get from the government is actually quite good, even though you have to pay into that. The fact that you don't have a lot of debt when you graduate university is a huge plus. I like Poland because
Wow.
it has a lot of capitalistic tendencies, but it borrows from Europe in a lot of ways, where there's a lot more protection focused on the worker instead of big corporations. Even though here in Poland, it is still quite capitalistic. You must take 14 consecutive days at the minimum of vacation, and you get 20 to 26 days paid mandatory leave. Whereas in the US,
Ooh.
you have 0 days legally required. You get an average of
By
10
law.
to 15 days, but often combines unpaid and paid sick leave. And Polish people actually use their vacation without guilt. I think Europeans in general are totally cool with using their vacation. Maternity leave
This is
here
great,
is
man.
Very
quite
good.
generous, at least compared to America.
I don't know, the work system here is harshly terrible, especially when it comes to some private firms, you know.
Yeah.
For you to get paid sick leave is a whole lot. And even government, no. It's actually very flexible over in Poland.
I
Wow.
think America is probably like the worst place to raise a family because just there are no protections for mothers that want to go on maternity leave, but it seems that that's still somewhat encouraged here in Poland. One of the cool
Wow.
things I like about this country is that as a young person, if you're under 26, you do not have to pay income tax. So all the money that you get goes directly to your pocket. You graduate university with
Wait, what
little
age did you
debt or
mention?
no debt.
26,
So if you're not above 26,
you can't pay income tax.
And you
please, when do you guys send me invitation to come to Poland? Please, I am begging.
get 0 income tax until you're 26. Most things, if you're a student, are also half price. For example,
Wow.
public transportation tickets, even the trains going to other cities, public transportation for the metro or tram in the city, you get half price on all of it. It's a
Like being a student has comes with its own privileges. Like 50% of normal purchases.
Practically, in Poland, adulthood begins from 27.
Yes.
Over here, adulthood begins from the age of 9. I'm telling you for
I
a
almost
fact.
said 15, but to be honest, man.
9. When you get to the age of 9, you start taking responsibility over here.
This is truly a working system, man, because everybody is put into consideration. Even the youngest. Wow.
That seem heavily favored towards the youth and allowing the younger people to be able to make more money and keep their money. I think one of the most effed up parts of the U.S. is how everybody is in debt. In credit card debt, in student loan debt. There are so many forms of debt in the U.S. It's absolutely
Right,
crazy.
so sad.
I believe the average debt for the American citizen is
Because
around
they pay a whole
$30,000
lot
to
of tax.
$40,000, if you can believe that. The biggest culprit is university and also healthcare. Americans were wealthier than many people around the world, but a lot of our economy is funded by debt. Is that really real wealth? A lot of my European friends are maybe poorer than some of my American friends, but almost none of them have student debt. Almost none of them have credit card debt. Maybe it's a consumer's culture, how there are no rules, for example, in gambling when it comes to sports events. Every sports channel and sports events now promotes gambling so much, which I think is so ridiculous. Polish people are just not as materialist as Americans are. Yes, they are European, but they're like new Europeans, so they kind of have this mix of both Western and Eastern culture, which I love a lot. Now that I don't have any student loans or credit card debt, I feel so much happier and at peace, and I can't believe that the majority of Americans have to suffer through that for years, even after they graduate, right? It's kind of a scam, if you think about it. So let's talk about gun violence for a second. I personally enjoy living in countries where the vast majority of the population does not have guns. I think it heavily decreases the murder rate. I am conservative in America, but I don't agree with the population having guns. It is a lot of power for the average person to hold. I think it gives a lot of Americans this God complex that nobody can tell me what to do because I have a gun backing me up. But if you live in a society where you have to defend yourself physically with fists, no weapons involved, I think it keeps a lot of people in check. I'm a Chinese guy. I'm not very tall. I'm fit. I can probably hold myself in a fight, but I am not going to be fighting these 6 feet Polish guys who look like they can kill me, okay? So because I'm not the biggest, throughout my life, I've always had to find ways to cooperate and handle conflicts peacefully without resorting to violence. If you're in a culture where violence is a norm and everybody wants to fight, or like in the US where it's super easy for people to get a gun and everybody has a mental illness nowadays for some reason, I would rather live in a country like Poland where things are very safe.
Yeah.
People are actually...
The whole talk of mental illness is just like off the chart currently.
Yeah.
And if somebody is caught in crime, it's called a mental illness. But obviously, this gun violence, right? Should I say 90% of me is grateful that we do not have the gun policy over here in Africa, the region we are from, and 10% is still sad about the whole no gun policy, because I would say it's actually the bad people over here that owns gun, and the civilians that rightfully need to hold gun to protect themselves are left with nothing. So we are being terrorized by a whole lot of banditry group that has gone, and in this sense you do not have, like, if you check up the news now, you see like news of villages being raided by bandits with gun. Like, I'm talking about AKs, I'm talking about
Full ammunition.
ammunited gun, and the community is left with nothing to defend themselves other than knives and cutlass. So in that cases, I'm just like, oh, if there's a gun privilege over here, it's going to help, and that like that.
The truth about this gun of a thing, right? For me, is a very highly controversial topic, and it is a 50-50 kind of a thing, because every good thing has a bad side and every bad thing has a good side. There is always an advantage for things and a disadvantage for things, but I will always err in the side of, even if there will be policy for gun use, there should be proper background checks, mental checks. You don't just give a mad person a loaded gun and then expect him to use it wisely. Do you understand? So it is those kind of checks that prevent stuff that are not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But when you give it because, you just want to make sales, then the consequences will be definitely severe.
Allowed to have guns here. The amount of guns per population is way lower than it is in the US. Also, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but if I were to send my kids to school in the US, there's always this fear in the back of your head that what if some school shooting happens? There were a couple of these situations at my high school when I was growing up. Nothing really happened, but the police were called and threats were made, and it was just this whole fiasco. Number 2, freedom from crippling medical debt. This is one of the biggest problems of the US. We have very good healthcare quality-wise, but when it comes to paying for it, pricing, everything is so confusing and extremely overpriced. It's another scam, in my opinion. Here in Poland, the public health care is not the best. However, they do have private insurance.
It's not the best.
LuxMed, I think, is one of the big ones. I believe it costs like a couple $100s a month, and this is for the top tier premium private insurance. Also, if you were to pay out of pocket without insurance, things cost less or the same as the copay you would pay in the US, and medication in general here is just a lot cheaper. I think a lot of people in America are so scared of going to the doctor or having anything bad happen to them because the bills that come in will just completely ruin people, from ambulance fees, hospital fees. There are so many stories about that online. In
Do people pay for ambulance fee?
Wait, do people pay for ambulance fee? Although we've never had a case where we had to be in an ambulance. Well, I was thinking that's on the government.
Yeah.
Except when it comes to a private-owned hospital.
Are ambulance not part of emergency response system? Just like fire service.
I stepped in the ambulance just for 1 second. Boom, you get charged $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. It's just so unclear in the US. This is something I think about a lot, especially as I get older. Now that I'm past 30 years old,
that's why you see some
health
people
is
get
a
wrecked
much higher
because of
priority.
this death.
Number one, the freedom to not have to worry about your safety. I cannot tell you how much peace I feel being able to walk around in the city at any point during the day or nighttime and feel safe that nothing bad is going to happen to me. I think the worst extreme was when I was in Colombia, Latin America, and I was on edge all the time, even though I lived in one of the safest cities in Colombia. Now I live in Warsaw. It's a capital city, and considering that it's a capital city, it's very safe and there's very low levels of crime here. Homogenous societies in general tend to be a lot safer, especially countries that have a proper winter. There is a correlation between temperature and crime rates, actually, if you guys didn't know about it. But also, I believe Poland as a country has this sense of what's right and what's wrong. They're very similar to a lot of Asian countries. We just have a societal standard for what's correct and what's not correct. Police officers here enforce the law, and I believe in general society does respect police officers. Whereas in America, it's this weird 50-50 split where there's a lot of people that are fighting against law enforcement in your own country and supporting people breaking the laws. I think one of the things that Asians and Poles have in common is a standard of cleanliness and order, but also an adherence to the rules, right? If somebody breaks the rules, they should be arrested or jailed. And there's a pretty hard line on what's correct and what's not correct. Whereas in America, it feels like things are a lot more moldable. You should be able to say, hey, I don't want people coming into my country illegally, and I want the government to enforce our laws of our country. But saying that in America makes you a racist, makes you a Trump lover, makes you a Republican, all this BS. For me, the most important thing is not what feels good, but what actually works to help maintain a proper society. And I think safety and rule and order is the number one thing that you need to prioritize, because once you have that foundation of rule and order, then you can build everything on top of that. And a lot of people just have this weird disrespect for the police when they're just trying to do their job. Look, are there bad police officers out there?
Definitely.
100%. Are they the majority? Heck no. And it's really difficult to be a police officer. And this is why I have a...
I'm sorry, I want to actually point out what he just said. He said, are they bad officers? Yes. Are they the majority? He said, heck no. Maybe over there, they are not. But I feel like over here, the bad ones, I don't think I've ever really had a very pleasant experience with any police officer. I have not... I'm talking about a single one. That says a lot.
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of respect for law enforcement in general, because a lot of these guys are just trying to do their job. I'm not trying to justify bad police officers. I would rather live in a society that overall has a respect for law enforcement rather than trying to impede law enforcement from doing their job. Something to think about. And this is why, if you have the means, I highly recommend living in other places. If you have Polish descent, so your parents or your grandparents are from Poland, you are able to come back to the country without problem. There's just some documentation that you have to do to prove that you're Polish. If you're a wealthy individual, I highly recommend getting a second passport. There are a lot of countries around the world that offer citizenship by investment, by family, by real estate. For example, if you have an EU passport, you can stay in any European country without a problem. So I highly recommend working with my friend Raphael at the Wealthy Expat. World now is so crazy. We have no idea what's going to happen from year to year. So being able to have that flexibility and be able to move when you need to is very important. If you guys are interested in that and you have a high net worth, I highly recommend reaching out to him here.
That's a whole lot of things.
Well,
but I think one of the things that stood out for me very, very is the raising independent kids, and I would say the maternity and paternity parental leave is a whole lot of biggie, because I still ask the question, what is the kidnap rates in Poland. I would have loved to check this question I'm asking in the video, but I'm going to do that after now. I want to know the rate at which kids and adults are being kidnapped there, and because over here it's actually like a terrible thing. We can't even let our kids play outside unsupervised. It's that bad. So, and the other thing that stood out for me is the maternity leave, because it's a whole lot of time for the mother to heal, bond with the child, and all of that. But then putting all of these things into consideration, and even the student having 50%, off from charges, public charges, is a whole lot of things. And I really want to see your comment down there as well. And let me know what you think about this in the comment section. This is actually very
Enlightening.
And this just tells a working government in Poland and why the Polish people are always patriotic towards the nation. I'll see you guys on my next one. Do also like, subscribe, share this video, and comment what you think and some of the questions we asked in the video. Bye, guys.